Hi, Siddhant.
Hi,
So,
Prajal.
thanks a lot for coming for the interview, and I hope that a lot of people would learn a lot of things from you, and you have achieved really great things in your life, and
Thank you.
at such a young age, it's a great thing to get into IIT and you got into IIM. That's a big deal. So, Siddhant, would you actually tell us about yourself? Background, where you are from, and where have you done your schooling?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm from Lucknow, born and brought up here. I went to a school called Mba Specifically school, and I did my entire schooling from there only. So yeah, I did my 10th and 12th from there, and after that, I took a drop for IIT. After which I got selected into IIT Kharagpur with a rank of around 2000 into the mechanical engineering branch. And in the last year, I decided to pursue CAT and gave the exam and got selected into IIM Ahmedabad.
Great. So, me, we want to know a little bit more about you as a person. How have you been from the beginning? Are you an extrovert, an introvert, and have you been a very studious guy from the beginning? So, a little bit about that.
So my father is actually a teacher and as well as a chartered accountant. So the atmosphere in the house was always strict and disciplined. So I used to be a studious guy in school, and till 12th I remember being a studious guy. After which I, as well as an introvert, and after which I got into college and explored the other facets of life. And now I would say I am more of an extrovert rather than an introvert.
Yes, college does that to you somehow, right? It
Yes.
changes you completely. So, great. And have you been into sports as well and extracurricular activities from the beginning, or what have you done in your engineering?
So basically, I have not been into sports like regularly, but
Mhm.
as an Indian kid, everyone would relate to playing cricket every day. So just like everyone else, I also grew up that way only, playing cricket in the evenings every day,
Great.
never missing it, even for any exams. And I also like to play football in school,
Mhm.
but that was not a very good memory because I used to get my specs broken a lot.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a problem. And about extracurricular activities apart from any professional debates, any other competitions that you have taken part in?
Yeah, so basically in my school life, I was very much interested into coding. So I started at a very young age, and I remember starting coding in class 6th.
Wow,
Yeah, so I developed a base, and by class 10th, I was participating in the various competitions, inter-school competitions. I used to be the participant of the school team in every competition, and I won a lot of prizes in class 11th and 12th in that.
great, great. And engineering?
So engineering was kind of like a choice because I took science. So as well as I was interested in coding, which I thought at that time was my career goal. So the obvious path was to go to an IIT and pursue computer science from there. But obviously things did not go according to plan. I did end up in an IIT, but I got into mechanical engineering branch.
And what happened about your, the programming thing that you were really good at? Were you able to pursue the same in your college?
So what happened was I took a drop year, right, in 2014, 2015. So when you take a drop, your entire life revolves around physics, chemistry, and maths.
Exactly.
So that coding thing took a backdrop somehow. I did not lose interest in it, I would say, but like I did not practice it also.
Mhm.
So when I went back to college in my first semester, I had the PDS course, programming and data structures. So I sailed through that course easily. I had already studied all those things, and I thought that I might take this up again. I had start coding again, and I did some courses from Coursera, and then took algorithms as well. Then sort of got repetitive for me, and I
I think that there's a network issue.
stopped enjoying it.
Okay.
So that is where the transition happened from coding to finance.
Okay. There's some network issue. Your screen is stuck.
Hello.
Yes. Is there a network issue from your side? Hi, Siddhant. Yes, it's better
Hi.
now. I
Yeah.
think yes, it's moving now. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes. Are
Yes.
you able to hear me clearly?
Yes. Sorry for
Great.
that.
No problem. Okay, so when did you actually start preparing for CAT? Which year? And how much time did you spend preparing for it?
So I started in August 2019, last year of college. After I completed my internship, so I came back to college. I gave some consulting interviews, and after that, when I had nothing to do, I started preparing for CAT in full steam. So I'd say 3 months.
So you prepared for CAT just 3 months.
Yeah, I actually
Okay.
did not have more time to do it.
Oh, great. That is again, great. So, and how did you prepare for CAT? Did you join any coaching institute, or was it completely, self-study?
So one of my close friends from my hometown only had given that exam last year. So I first had a chat with him and I decided to know what this exam is all about, like what are the sections that come and how to prepare. And he suggested me that since you have a strong maths background, you don't need a particular coaching for it. So self study would work. And he suggested me the books for it, the Arun Sharma books. So
Okay.
I bought those books and enrolled for the Time mock series, and that is the only material I guess I use for the preparation.
This is a really good thing for all the viewers also, and as well as people who will be watching this video, that we prepared completely through Arun Sharma book and Time mock test series, right?
Yes,
uh, Generally what happens is people do not know what all study materials to refer, and then they start referring 5-10 books and 5-10 mock test series, and they don't understand that the more you split your time between all those stuffs, you lose a lot of
yes,
focus.
yes,
Yes, but generally more than one mock test series is advised, because you get different types of questions also. But
definitely.
yes,
At
great.
least two is recommended because you get a variety. So like one coaching center tends to be, I would say, biased towards some particular pattern of paper. They cover the variety well,
Yeah.
but then also if you see two different mock series, you'll find a lot of difference between the patterns.
Yes, the pattern differs a lot. For example, IMS test series, career launcher and time test series, right? So all these three, differ in certain ways.
Exactly.
Yes. So, yeah, another very important question is why MBA? A lot of people get confused between doing and going for GATE or GRE or GMAT, or CAT. So how did you figure out that you want to go for an MBA specifically, and not higher studies into the same engineering field?
So, as people might know, my degree is basically an interdisciplinary degree.
Mhm.
So, I have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and a master's in financial engineering.
Yes. Yes.
So, that was one major factor that I was not particularly interested in the mechanical engineering field. So,
Okay.
going into that was completely out of the question. So, I ruled off GATE and higher studies in engineering. So the
Mhm.
next step was deciding whether to first go for a job and then see whether you want to go for an MBA or an MS outside, because these days there are a lot of courses in quantitative fields in foreign universities.
Right.
In these finance courses that I did, I realized that I had more a flair for the theoretical as well as the quantitative fields, but I wasn't particularly much interested in going outside India. And I also wanted to leave some of the technical stuff behind and tend more towards the management side because I liked the front facing jobs more, like the jobs where the interaction with the clients is more. You don't basically sit behind a desk and work. You don't just interact with your colleagues, you also interact with the client. So basically a more, you would say, diverse as well as a real time job.
Right. And Siddhant, the most interesting part about your whole portfolio and your profile is that you have deferred your admission to IIM Ahmedabad. Unlike
Yes.
most of the people, right, who the moment they clear CAT, they want to join IIM Ahmedabad, right? Once you have got a call from Ahmedabad or Bangalore, they don't wait for anything. But you are one of those very few people who have chosen to defer the admission. You are not going to join this year, but in 2020, 2022, right?
Yes.
Right. So, why did you do that? And and what was the process to do that? When did you actually tell them that, okay, I just don't want to go ahead and take admission this year, but later? Just tell me the whole story behind that.
Yeah. So basically, as you know, the results tend to come out by April, but
Right.
because of the COVID situation, they came out by May 8th for Ahmedabad and Bangalore. So in these 2 months was when I started considering deferring the admission, because I had a very good job offer in hand. I had worked for an internship there, and I knew the people there, and I thought that there was a lot of learning to be had there, and I really liked the job profile also. It was in my interest of basically an analyst in the financial domain. So that is when I got to thinking. I basically called up a lot of alumni from my college as well as from the organizations I had been a part of, and I then made a pros and a cons list. So there are a lot of things that you take into account. There is a financial aspect, then there is the experience aspect, then there was also the uncertainty aspect given the current situation. So taking into all these things into account, I decided that taking WorkX would actually help me, especially with the course content, developing a profile for the jobs that I might want to aim for, and also give me a basically a corporate experience, because that experience helps you not only with your interpersonal skills as well, but also in your approach and your targets, I would say.
Right. There's something which you also understand, that once you are a fresher, it's a very different, you don't have that perspective of handling or working in a team, right?
Yeah.
The moment you study, you just finish one degree and then you go with another degree. You don't know the environment, the corporate environment, which is something that a lot of companies prefer. So did you think about that? That team management would be something that you'll be able to learn here in your current job, and then you will go ahead with that.
Yeah, so that is always one aspect, right? So like when you work as a part of a team, you realize what are the challenges that you face as someone, and that those things basically help you be a better manager in the future. So I always believe that someone who basically learns from the experiences of others as well as himself, those experiences come in very handy, and that is why I have placed a lot of value on the experiences that you gain in life.
Mhm. Yes, great. Now, there's another thing that a lot of people think that once when people are sharp, they don't need to study a lot, right? So they generally, a lot of people feel that, okay, intelligent people are just intelligent, they don't work hard to clear something, right? And this is one of the biggest misconception that people have. That's because people never see the hard work that somebody has put behind, right? And then they only see that, okay, this person has scored this much, and so probably he's gifted. But I'd like your inputs, to break that, conception that people have, and tell us
So
how much you studied for CAT and previous things.
yeah, so basically, it never comes easy. Nothing ever does. So I still remember. So it's like it starts from your early life only. So I remember preparing for all the board exams. So I
Mm-hmm.
used to be prepared with the entire syllabus by my first free board only, and I used to be thorough with each and every sentence of the syllabus. So that I had a very sharp memory back then. So I spent hours memorizing whatever needed to be memorized, and I was done with the syllabus beforehand only. So that is something that I carried on in my college life also. So as you know, engineering colleges, a lot of people have this approach of the last minute thing, that they leave everything to the last night and then they try to finish it up.
Right.
So I believe that does help you develop a lot of skills. You learn to basically complete tasks very quickly, and you also learn to work under pressure.
Sure.
But that specifically wasn't my thing. I was more on the opposite side. I used to plan my schedule a long time before only. So 1 month back, I used to prepare my schedule by which date I used to be done with the syllabus. And then when the other was logging it out, I could actually rest and take a breathe easy in the final moments. So that was always my strategy for every examination that I've given or anything that I've pursued in life. So similarly for CAT also, I basically prepared a entire schedule that till what were my targets, the short-term targets, the long-term targets, what I aim to achieve to complete within the next month, next 15 days. And so I tried to complete those in time so that I'd be ready by the final exam.
And also, Siddhant, since you only prepared for 3 months, how much of your time did you spend every day on going through all the books? Because completing the syllabus is also something that you have to look at.
Yeah.
Right?
So basically, my target was that I tried to complete the quant chapters. Initially, my speed was basically going at 1 chapter per 2 days, depending upon the length of the chapter. Some big chapters took more time, some took less time. And after that, I doubled my speed and I tried to finish the entire chapter in 1 day. So you can say around 200 questions in 1 day. So I used to make slots in the morning, afternoon, and evening. So basically, like 50 to 60 questions in the morning, 1.5 hours, and so on in the evening as well. And for the mocks, I rested my weekends as well as the middle of the week for that. So mocks on 2 days, and the rest I would spend all the time doing the preparation.
Great. So we'll go a little into a little detailed into the preparation process. So when you picked up the books of Arun Sharma, what was the strategy? I mean, did you finish LOD one of all those first and then went to LOD two? I think LOD one is quite easy.
Yeah,
It's too easy for everybody. But LOD
exactly.
two and LOD three. Did you go for LOD two also and LOD three also at the same time? And what was your approach for every single chapter?
Okay. So basically, my approach was first to go to the theory part that used to be very less in the Arun Sharma books, but there were certain tips and tricks that I took note of and noted down separately so that they would help me in my revision process. After that, I would look at the solved examples, go through them quickly, and then I used to attempt only LOD 1 and LOD 2. So one thing that my friend had already suggested, and I also noted that the LOD 3 questions were tough for one point, and secondly, if you sat down to solve them, most of them would take more time than you could afford in the actual exam. So like going by the probabilities and like a structured thinking, I thought that it's better not to go into that. I might end up wasting a lot of time preparing for that, and in the question in the exam itself, the probability of me answering that within the scheduled time frame is also very less. So I decided to skip LOD 3 and focus first on LOD 1 and LOD 2.
Mhm.
LOD 1, I specifically tried not to use the pen and paper at any point. It was only in the dire circumstances that I tried to use it, or for the last calculations that the multiplication that might be necessary to get the final answer. And in LOD2, I tried to write minimum number of equations and mostly do most of the things in the brain itself by leading the question and
Mhm.
do minimum calculations that I can so as to save time.
Right. So shortcuts also, did you create a list of shortcuts that you could actually take for each of those chapters?
So for shortcuts, the best chapter that I resorted to was percentages, which I believe helps a lot. If you take, they help in a certain number of chapters. And another important chapter that I believe is allegations, which definitely helps you in the ratio and proportion questions, the averages questions. So these two chapters I feel are very underrated and overlooked by the by most of the people, because
Mhm.
like you would not see direct questions from these chapters, but if you sit down and see their applications, they are very diverse.
Yes. And what chapters would you want in when we are speaking just about quantitative aptitude? What
Yeah.
chapters would you say that people should? Which is the most difficult one? Which is the most easiest one? And what are the chapters that we'll ask people to focus on a lot more than others?
So I found by all my mocks also that your work, time, speed, distance related questions, your averages, your geometric means, and your percentages, allegations, profit and loss, functions, logarithms, inequalities. These are the easy chapters that you must basically prepare very strongly. That you should not miss out on questions of these chapters.
Mhm.
Then there are the chapters that are a little tough. You would say this your permutation and combinations, your probabilities. The level of the question is not as hard as we have studied in engineering. So I counted them as in the medium section. And for me, the hard chapters were geometry and the number system. So number system, no matter how many questions you attempt, there might be some question that you will get stuck on and you will not be able to solve it. And similarly for geometry, sometimes the thing does not strike you what you have to apply. So for these chapters, my approach was to basically target the easy questions, know the basic concepts and the formulas so that no easy questions goes by. And I might miss on the medium questions for these two chapters, but I roughly calculated that that would not affect me. So I could basically strongly prepare the rest of the chapters and prepare these two chapters so that I answered the easy questions at least.
Great. So your focus was, try to make sure that you are really well in the strategy that you actually took was that focus on the things which are easy, and make sure that you don't miss any of the questions from there, right?
Yeah,
And then move to the medium type of chapters, and focus on that, right? And try to go as become as good in those chapters as you can, and then the tough ones, um, as you said, that some of those questions are something that nobody can solve, right? Most of the times
exactly.
under that pressure, it's not that you cannot solve when you
Solve,
have
yeah.
time, but then
Hmm.
under that pressure it becomes very difficult. So also, we're just talking about quantitative aptitude right now. Now, what was the thought that came in your mind when you got a question which is difficult in your exam, actual exam, right?
Yeah,
The strategy of attempting a section is also very important. That a lot of people get stuck when they see a difficult question and try to keep trying to solve that.
yeah.
Well, just give some advice to everybody on that.
Yeah, so basically, giving mocks is one thing that prepares you for this. As you said, the strategy for giving the sectional in an exam. So I believe that mocks are very necessary for that. So for me, I realized that in the starting, I used to get stuck on these questions. So I had this thing that I thought that I would be able to solve the question, and I used to go at that for 5 to 6 minutes and then move on to the next question. So I realized from these things that there was no use getting stuck. So in your starting, start sequentially, go through the questions, the ones that you can solve within a minute or two. Just try to solve them, breeze through all the questions, and then during this process, there's an option called mark for review. So that can be used for marking the questions that you believe will take a little bit more time, say 3 minutes. Uh, a little more than the easy questions so that you can come back to them later on. So and in this way, and also some of the questions which I had no idea about, I thought that if I sat down I might be able to solve, but it might take 5 or 6 questions. I basically ignored that question. I was like, I'll not be attempting this question, I'll move on and I'll attempt the rest of the questions. So like learning to move on from a question is, I would say, the most important thing that you will learn from your mocks.
And focus on your strengths, right? Make sure that all those things are something that the easy questions you finish, because all of them are carrying almost the same marks,
Yeah,
right? So get the maximum answers first, right? Which you can get correct from the easy topics. So generally the strategy that we have also seen is that you go through the whole question, also all the questions as early as possible. The moment you find a difficult question, just skip it
skip.
at that point of time and just go to the next question, probably because even if you spend 1 minute extra on a tough question and you're not able to get the answer, then you are going to lose that time. So why not go
Exactly.
through all the questions, solve the ones that you are able to do, and then spend the rest of the time on coming back to the difficult ones and trying to spend as much time as you can, right?
Yeah,
That will help you
and
reduce the pressure also.
yes, yes. And one more thing is that when you have done a particular number of questions, you feel confident that you have attempted these number of questions and you're not missing out when you are trying some other question.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So mental peace is very important during the exam, right?
definitely. The calmness is very, very important.
Yes. So what is the strategy of LR and DI?
Yeah, so LR and I initially in my mocks I was getting very less. So I used to barely be able to solve two sets correctly. So that is when I realized that I was like going at it sequentially and trying to solve everyone. Then when I was not able to solve and I spent 8 or 10 minutes on that question, I moved on. So basically I wasted a lot of questions on the difficult ones and I wasn't able to give enough time to the easy ones. And so when I was attempting the easy ones, I was under so much pressure that I wasn't able to solve them also. So then I shifted to the selection based technique. So in my initial 3 or 4 minutes, I decided. So before attempting a mock only, I decided that these pattern of sets are my strengths. So let's say selection, arrangements. These sets are my strengths. So I'll be first picking these sets, solving them, and when I'm done with it, then I'll move on. So I try to make choices in the sets of, like, I'll choose first 4 sets that I'll be attempting, the next 2 sets if I manage to complete the first 4 sets, and then the last 2 sets I'll attempt if I managed. So your first target should be, you must be able to complete at least 4 sets in those 1 hour when you're starting to give mocks, or when you have given them for some time, like 2 weeks or say. So you should be able to attempt at least 4 sets, and then from there you can increase your accuracy as well as your speed.
Right. And I think DI is something that needs a lot of practice also. You
Definitely.
have to be
So
really fast with your calculation.
exactly. So basically, what happens in LR and DI is that there is so much information that sometimes your brain cannot just get accustomed to it. So you get lost into what the next step is. So you might just be running around in circles in LRDI sometimes. So what helps is basically your take up a pattern of set, say selection, one type of a set, and try to master it. Try to attempt enough questions that when you attempt a new question, you will be able to know what should your next step be, and then move on to the next type of question. So in this way, if you master the various types of questions that can actually come in CAT, then you'll be much better off than just practicing random sets every day.
Right. And also, now let's come to the English section, right? Verbal ability is, uh, for engineers, it is generally said that they get least marks in their verbal ability section.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. How did you prepare that, and were you already good in English? And was it easy for you? And if things were difficult, which topics or which type of questions did you find difficult? How about RC and the jumbled paragraphs and all those things? Because those are very confusing. Jumbled paragraphs are most of the times very confusing. So
Yes, definitely.
about that.
Yeah, so basically, I would say that I had a strong base in English because I studied from ICSE and ISC schools. So they made us write those long answers of 2 to 3 pages. So I believe that studying English well there actually helped me a lot. So I did not specifically have to prepare separately for this, but I still remember having a lot of trouble going through the RCs. So what happens is, when you read the paragraph, it is not so difficult and you tend to understand the basic gist of it. But when you move on to the questions, you'll see that the options are so similar that you have a very hard time selecting the right option. So initially what I did was I tried to select the right option, and I always used to be confused between 2 or 3 options, so because they look so similar. So then what I started was started looking for one key word that would negate that option. So this is something that is taught to us in JEE, that you try to eliminate all the options and then you'll be left with one option.
Yeah,
So
inshallah.
yeah. So basically I tried that. I tried to find a keyword that would just negate that option for that particular question. And in the end, in most of the cases, I was left with 2 options which were very similar. And then I tried to choose the one option that I would go with.
Okay.
Another thing was the selection part of it. So like sometimes when you're confused between 2 options, you have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So then the thought is whether you should attempt it or not given the
Yes.
negative marking. So what I did was, in my mocks, I used to like write down these questions separately, attempt these, and in some of the mocks I did not attempt these. So I used to basically compare which approach is better, whether I should attempt or not. So I used to find that I was always one, maybe two, three, four, any number of marks better off while attempting all the questions. So that was basically my preferred strategy, because I believe that I had an accuracy of something around 85 to 90%, not 100%. So like if I went for the selected number of questions, I would have definitely ended up with a lesser score. So that is why I tried to attempt all the questions and focus more on the speed part of it.
Yeah. Also, in case of RC, a lot of people first try to read the questions, right, and then first they go through all the questions and then they read the paragraph. So sometimes it helps them with context,
Yeah.
building
So
context.
that
So
yeah,
something that you
that is
do
also
also.
one approach you can follow. So what happens is, when you read the questions, you know which paragraphs of the RC you should focus more on. So like you can underline those things before your hand only, and maybe you'll save 30 seconds approximately in that. So that is also one good thing. But sometimes what happens is, like when you are reading all the questions, then those questions keep on jumbling in your mind. So you might get confused and then you might screw up your entire paragraph. So that is also something that happened with me. So to be on the safer side, I used to like look at one. The questions are basically in the sequential order. So your first question would come somewhere upper in the paragraph, then the second question. So
Right.
what I tried to do was I tried to look at the first question, begin reading. When I had encountered that question, I underlined the line concerned with that question, and then I moved on. So this is also something that helped me.
Right. So yes. So another thing is, tell us about the experience that you had in the interview, right? Tell us about the whole interview day. What did you? Generally, people are very anxious before the exam or before the interviews, right? So
Yeah.
how did you spend the night before that? And because that's pretty exciting for everybody. And the next day, how was the whole interview process went? At what time did it start? And how many people were there in the interview? How many interviewers were there? And what was the whole flow? Also, AWT would also be there for you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
just tell everybody about that.
So I'll start with IIM Calcutta. So basically, I was studying in my college then in Kharagpur, and my center was in Delhi. So I had to travel to Delhi, and my interview was scheduled at something around in the morning 8 a.m. So I had
Mhm.
to get up at 5 in the morning, then reach that place by 7 to be like sure that I would reach on time, then get the documents verified. And then for Ahmedabad and Bangalore, I had the VAT, and for for Calcutta and Bangalore, I had the VAT, and for Ahmedabad, I had the AWT. And after that, you have your interviews. So in all the three interviews, I had a panel of three people who were asking me questions. So I'll start with Calcutta. So Calcutta was my first interview, and I was very nervous. So I was sitting there, and I was third in my panel. So basically, they divide you in groups of 8 in Calcutta. There were 24 people, and you go according to your number, and I was third. So the first two people did not come out with a happy experience, and they had a low face, and so I was very nervous going in. So there was this lady who basically put me at ease. So she knew about my college and my course in my college. So she basically held me at ease, and then she started asking me some questions about my college. And then it was basically a very, you would say, casual discussion more than an interview. So she was just asking me things and very pleasantly. So I did not have what people call a stress interview, which some of the people who I had conversations with had. So in stress interview, they just keep on throwing questions at you to just basically destabilize you and basically put you off your game so that
Right.
you make some mistakes.
Mhm.
So they are seeing whether you can handle the pressure or not. I did not have that experience. So I had a very pleasant interview in Calcutta. It was around my course. Then we had a discussion about artificial intelligence and machine learning and the impact of coronavirus and whether we could actually take over China as the hub or not. So that was basically a casual discussion, and I came out very happy. So I had a very good interview then. The next one was Bangalore, which did not go according to plan. So I went in, and they started asking me some questions related to value at risk, financial risk management. It was one course. So I missed out on one easy question, and that started playing in my mind that I couldn't answer the question, which I should have. And then they asked me why MBA. So this question was especially prevalent in my case because I have done a financial engineering master's. So I've studied most of the courses in finance that would be taught in MBA. So according to them, my MBA would be a redundant process and I should not pursue it. So I tried to convince. My point of view was that I wanted to basically gain a more wholesale perspective of businesses because finance is just one aspect of the business and one aspect of MBA. There are a lot of other things that you study and you basically gain an overall personality development also. So and also my purpose of going for an MBA was to basically concentrate on the strategy aspect more. That is one thing that I really like, and I wanted to study more about it. So that yeah, but then they started cross questioning me, and things did not go according to plan, and they basically just told me that you should not do an MBA and you should just go and do your job. So that was the Bangalore interview, and my Ahmedabad interview was the last one, and I just 2 days after my Bangalore interview. So I came back home and I wasn't very high on confidence after that interview. I was like, I have the most important interview day after tomorrow, and this one went so bad, and so I was feeling a little low. So I decided to take the next day off. So I was staying at my friend's place in Gurgaon. So I basically chilled with them. So I wasn't trying to focus on the interview. I was trying to stay relaxed so that I go with a calm frame of mind in the most important interview. So I went to Ahmedabad on the seventh of March.
Mhm.
So that interview was also at 8 a.m. in the morning. So I reached there, and so AWT was the first part for IIM Ahmedabad, and it is a little different from VAT. So you basically have to analyze and write your perspectives on that. So my WT was basically the importance of your of the non-performing arts as well as the art streams in management as compared to your science. So I argued pro because there are a lot of pros for studying your arts and your non-performing arts, and they were arguing that there is no contribution of the people in arts, the great musicians, great writers, which I did not agree with. The next part was basically the interview, wherein I again started with my course, your hobbies, why MBA, and the last question was the one which I believe sealed my fate. So it was that how do you deal with failure? Because they were asking you like, so I mentioned that I'm going there because I also like competition. So they were like, "Ki in IIM Ahmedabad, you will face severe competition, and there might be areas where you will definitely fail. You will not succeed at everything. So how do you deal with failure?" So that I believe is an important question.
Great. So, and what was your answer to that?
So basically, before going for CAT, I'd appeared for two interviews and I had failed in them. I had been rejected. So my answer was that only, that gave CAT after being rejected for three interviews straight away, which was basically the most amount of failure that I had experienced successively. And after that, I cracked CAT. So basically, failure does not act as a determinant for me.
Okay. And yes, so was Ahmedabad always, the college that you wanted to get into, or did you ever think that if you get into other colleges also you'll go and join apart from IIMs, or which IIMs did you focus on?
So basically, I had not given any other exam apart from CAT, and I only applied for the interview of ABC only. So
Okay.
I wasn't like willing to go to any other IIM. So like it was just a dream to stay focused as well. So like you have a target and you stay focused. As well as I knew that if I'll be giving other interviews, I'll be just sacrificing my preparation time.
Right.
So I did not want to do that. And aside from that, I guess every aspirant has that dream of going to IIM Ahmedabad. So there's this brand value associated with it, as well as like the tough competition, the things that you have heard about the first term at IIM Ahmedabad, and the prestige that goes along with it. So like that is always a dream. So the first option was always IIM Ahmedabad,
Mhm.
and the next was IIM Bangalore or
Mhm.
Calcutta. I was actually confused because of the finance aspect.
Okay. Yeah, now we'll just go back to the attempt that you did in your the actual exam. So, how many questions did you attempt? How many of them did you get right, and how much did you get wrong? So, in each of these three sections, because people would be interested in knowing that if they want to get that percentile, what should be the exact strategy? How many questions they have to get right to get that percentile.
Yeah. So in VARC, I remember attempting all the questions, 34, and I got 27 right and I got 7 wrong. And my percentile was something around 99.89. In your LRDI, I attempted 23 questions. I got all right. And my percentile was something around 99.7 plus. I don't exactly remember the exact percentile, but it was something around there. And in quant, I remember attempting 27 questions. I got 3 of them wrong and 24 of them right. And I got 99.69 percentile.
Great. So, nice. This number is something that would be very important for everybody.
Yeah.
Uh, So now this is one last question, which is, if you want to go back, and look at your preparation, would you want to change anything? any mistakes that you know that, okay, I had done this mistake, and now that you have already cleared that, you don't really have a lot of regrets, right? You understand that, okay, things turned out well. But what if you had to look at some of the small things, probably in the interview, you might have felt that, okay, I should have focused on that also.
So in the preparation, I would say that I would have spent a little more time on the mock analysis. So I've as I said, that is one very important part of the preparation. So I believe that I would have spent a little more time on the mock analysis, as well as remember to note down my mistakes. So I made some very silly mistakes in the actual exam, and I always have this belief that I could have bettered my percentile. So yeah, that does sound very highly ambitious, but yeah, I believe that I could have avoided those mistakes. So, and yeah, one thing that I would specifically like to point out is that everyone should get accustomed with the on-screen calculator. I messed up a lot. I remember spending 3 minutes on that calculator trying to input the numbers. So yeah, that is something one should get accustomed to. And in my interviews, I believe that I should have focused a little more on my academics. So I was more focused on the current affairs and the VAT. I had heard so much about the random interviews that I thought that the most of the interview would revolve around your current affairs only, the happenings around the world. And in hindsight, I would have prepared a little bit more about my academics, more strong.
Great. So nice. It was nice talking to you. You gave a lot of inputs, and to get an insight into somebody who has got so much of that percentile, it's really going to help a lot of people. Just to focus on the fact that you don't have to get all the questions right, right? But your accuracy matters a lot, right? When you said that in LRDI you got 23, attempted 23, and you got all of them correct. So that shows that, okay, you have to be very confident about that. And sometimes what people do is in think that, okay, I'm just attempting 23, and should I start attempting more as well, right? And most of the time it's not. So you can attempt 23 mark paper questions, or 27, let's say, in availability that you said, right? So you have to be very sure about that. And if you got 27 correct, that would also get you a really good percentile. So
Yes.
people must, you don't have to get all the answers, all the questions correct. It's not just that, it's about accuracy
Definitely.
as well.
Yeah, basically you should know your targets. So like analyze the previous year's question papers,
Right.
analyze the percentiles, and you would know that what should be your basic target and what should be your basic number of questions that you should attempt. And after that, you can basically try to increase your speed.
Great. So nice. It was nice talking to you. So if somebody has a question, you can post it in the window. We'll just take 2 questions. So just write your question there, and we'll go through those.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Should one go for coaching or rely on self-study? Asked by Vatsal.
So basically, that is something that would be a personal choice. So, like, if you have a strong maths background and you do not require much guidance in your quant section, then I believe that you can actually do it without your coaching as well. But if you believe that you need the help, you need the guidance, then you should definitely go for one.
Right. It all boils down to whether you are already very good in maths, right, or the aptitude portion. Then you don't need that. Otherwise, also for some people, it is very important to have that discipline to go in a class and follow the syllabus one by one. But it takes a
Definitely,
lot of
yeah.
time. You would not be able to finish the whole syllabus in 3 months if you were to go for coaching.
Yeah.
So yes. So yes, I will just pick one of those 2 questions. What is the relevance of extracurricular activities, and is there anything like engineers are not preferred? Yes, this is an interesting question. Yes, please tell me. Is there
Yes.
anything like engineers are not preferred for MBA and they are given less preference?
So I would say that if you look at the batch strength of any IIM, then you would find that there is approximately 50% engineers in most of them. And in Calcutta, you would find that that percentage is even higher. So it is not like they are not preferred, but the fact that the competition is much more tougher for engineers, and the calls come at a very higher percentile as compared to non-engineers. So
Right.
yeah, your competition is tougher, but it is not like you are not preferred.
And they tend to look at the diversity of the batch also, because
Definitely.
there's a lot about peer learning that you do there, right? Somebody from finance background would be able to tell you a lot of other stuff. Somebody from arts background, they will you'll get to learn a lot from them in the class also. So that's one big reason that they do this. Great, Siddhant. Thanks a lot for your time,
Thank you,
and
Pranjal.
it was a very interesting talk. And let's see how it goes. And all the best to you for your future. So,
Thank you so much.
okay then. Yeah, see you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you, Siddhant.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thanks everybody for attending. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.